Well, it's official. A new Brexit campaign has started. And just as the last campaign began, it began not with a thunderous roar, but a very pathetic whimper. As with most of these Brexit campaigns, they are at themselves incredibly flawed. It's trying to warn people, and especially companies that it's targeting it at, for stuff that they even haven't been told. Even now, companies are still, after 4 years of asking for clarification about what exactly is going to happen post Brexit. No one on the Conservative side seems to want to say a damn thing about regulations, even though it's very clear that come next year, oh, not only are there going to be brand new regulations, especially at the border, but there is going to be a massive cutting bureaucracy that comes after a lot of our, quote, regulations that are seen as bad, like, not to mention workers' rights, but food, among other things, with the authors of the agricultural bill that is going to go through. Not to mention America, when we do the trade deal with them, which is inevitable by the looks of it, is going to force us to take on even worse regulations. For example, as I've said multiple times about the chlorinated chicken, and many Brexiteers have just, chimed back, well, I won't buy it. Well, good luck, because one of the big key things in America that a lot of these companies push for is to not be labelled. So you wouldn't even know whether it was. Now, recently we've had a lot of supermarkets come out and say that they will not stock chlorinated chicken, which, to be honest, is good. How long that will last, we don't know. But at least it's a good consumer move, and they have been put pressure on by consumers, which is good. Will this have an effect on the trade deal? Not really. But today, as we said, there's a brand new campaign just being set off, and it's, well, we'll let Ian Dunt say it himself, but it's just a glance back at the glory days in the past, and this is part of what Brexit was about. So this comes from politics.co.uk, and it's Brexit ad campaign's new start is a trip to the past. Another Brexit advertising campaign. They've replaced sporting events as signs of the changing seasons. Instead of Wimbledon or the Olympics, we get Michael Gove talking gibberish on television, and further millions poured into preparedness exercises for an outcome with no tangible benefits. Last year's ad demanded that we get ready for Brexit on October 31st. They spent 46 million on that until it was cancelled on October the 28th. Early in the year, they spent 15.2 million on a campaign to get us ready for leaving on March 29th, until that was cancelled too. Perhaps this new form of financial stimulus, regular ad spends on a never-ending series of Brexit events. The latest slogan is the UK's new start. Let's get going. It will prepare Britain for the significant opportunities of Brexit. Those opportunities include the 470 million for port and infrastructure, the 235 million for the IT systems and staffing, plus additional funding for HMRC for the new customs checks, while each will be required if there's a deal with the EU or not. A 27-acre site in Kent has been set to turn in a customs clearance centre to process lorries coming from the EU into Dover. Michael Gove insists that this will create the world's most effective border by 2025, but in fact he's attempting to eliminate the world's most effective border. Goods currently travel to and from our largest trading partner without checks, payments or delays, but with oversight and regulatory control. Now that is being dismantled. We will lose the control. No matter what the government says, the UK will produce according to what its partners want, but gain the checks and delays. That bit of land in Kent they're turning into a customs area is a perfect encapsulation of the Brexit process as a whole. The digging up of England's green and pleasant to turn into a lorry park, a dream of national destiny. degeneration into a series of tedious, self-harming and unnecessary bureaucratic requirements. No one yet has been able to describe what the significant opportunities we're to receive actually are. The combined benefit to the UK GDP by 2030 of a free trade agreement with the EU, the US, China, Japan, India, Australia and New Zealand, assuming we actually get all those deals, still falls far short of the benefit of the EU membership. The money we're spending is paying for infrastructure to conduct activities which businesses never previously needed to do when trading with Europe. It's a trip to the past, a time machine back to the most tiresome periods of our recent history. It's like coming home to find your partner has given up on streaming movies and has decided to mortgage the house in exchange for a Betamax machine. This change is being inflicted on businesses whether they're struggling under the pulverizing impact of the coronavirus. The Institute for Directors survey this morning found only a quarter of business leaders said they were actually ready. A third said they still needed to know the new arrangements before they could actually prepare. What goes for companies goes for people too. Holidays to Europe will now become more bothersome. You'll need to contact your vet if you want to take your pet over. Make sure you've a valid passport. Take out comprehensive health insurance and find out whether the roaming policy on your phone operator is going to be. There is still time. There was a time not so long ago when we were promised none of this would ever happen. Trade would be frictionless because of a new high-tech sci-fi arrangement. Where are those arrangements now? They're a lorry park in Kent. We were told that Britain would be wealthier, but for each of those actions serves to limit, not expand our economic activity. We were told that we would be in more control, but if that is so, there amount to controlling the position of customs infrastructure. We're going back to a monochrome past at extraordinary cost for no reason at all, and at the worst possible moment. Downing Street can talk about significant opportunities all it likes, but in truth, these ad campaigns conceal precisely the arguments against Brexit which were made 4 years ago. What treasonable metropolitan hogwash is the government now the government's public relations strategy? And that's the situation we're now in. This awful question, because this is, remember, the questions around Brexit about what again significant advantages. What are these significant advantages actually going to be? That's where, as usual, silence, and as usual, there will be no follow-up campaign of what these significant opportunities were. And trust me, I can guarantee you the government will try every single trick it can to try and hunt down companies that are somehow doing well out of the coronavirus, despite how doing well that actually means. But I'm sure if that will happen, we'll definitely see it soon. And of course, people will write articles about, yeah, this business ain't doing well. Brexit has actually inflicted it massively, and to get where it is, it's actually had to do this, and this, which have been no good to the business at all. So, as usual, Brexit just continues on, careering on continuously, ever wheeling but never stopping. And as was said right at the end there, 4 years ago, the exact same arguments are still valid. What is the point of Brexit? What advantages is it going to give us? And that question of why is still very valid. Even today, there is still silence after that why. So no matter what the government wants to say, no matter what the Brexiteers continue to want to say, no matter what Brexiteer supporters have conned themselves into thinking about these magnificent advantages and this quote new freedom that they've won, I've always going to look forward to next summer, where all the holidays are finally managing to kick back off, and the amount of probable moaning and stories we are going to cover of horrible travel experiences to Europe, because of the new situation that we are now in. We are now a third country and will be as of next year. And that's not only what we've got to look forward to. As I've said, the true agenda of the Conservatives, of the ERG, and all these free market fundamentalists comes in next year. Remember, Michael Gove blamed the European regulations for his father's company's downfall. Of course, that wasn't the case. But if a man will willing to lie about that to try and get rid of regulations, do you think that he's going to lie about other regulations that are affecting other businesses? I said in the very earliest things about Brexit, where we covered a book, the Great Brexit Plan, I think it was something like that, and it basically said this: Brexit is not about anyone except the very wealthy elite. They know it will do damage to this country, but the UK to them is a pie, and Brexit for them allows them to get a bigger slice of a much smaller pie. And to them, gaining an extra couple million a year is worth it for all the pain and suffering everyone else can go through, because as far as they're concerned, they're slightly more wealthy.